Caleb Johnson's going to draw so much of our attention this summer because he runs the football, because he has it in his hands. Will Howard is going to draw a lot of our attention, undoubtedly, because he plays the most important position. I get this. In fact, I feel this, which is why I remind myself on a regular basis, ever since this most recent NFL draft, that somebody else was the first pick. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates, the same place that you found this. Hope you'll check those out as well. Derrick Harmon is exciting. He might not play the most exciting position, and he's only going to get his hand on a football once every blue moon, even if he's great. But what I'll do to make sure that I refresh that feeling that I had when he was taken is I'll look at the videos. They're highlights, sure, but these things actually did occur. This past season at Oregon, he really did have 45 tackles in 14 games, 10.5 of those tackles for losses, 5 sacks, 4 passes defensed, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. Beyond that, he's fully equipped, meaning with all the requisite tools that help to guarantee future success. He's 6'5", 313. So when people compare him, and they have, to Cam Hayward, they always throw into parentheses, but he's bigger. He ran the 40 in 4.95 seconds. That's just outlandish for someone his size. He shows the brute strength that you see from Cam, the natural stuff that can't be accumulated through extra hours in the weight room kind of stuff. You know, you're just born with some level of strength. He's got the quick feet to go with that. He doesn't need to lean on throwing opponents aside to beat them. Sometimes it's just by shedding the block and accelerating. Other times it's a move. But the one thing that jumps out and has jumped out for me consistently about him, and it's why I am legitimately more excited to see the first round pick than the ones that everybody's talking about. I got to find this quote for you here, scrolling down a little bit. I clipped and saved it for this episode. An NFC executive told NFL.com before the draft, before now, he said of Armen, quote, "He plays like a Raven or a Steeler. Off the tape, he reminds me of a young Cam Hayward, but bigger," end quote. Now, I'm not wild about the Ravens and the Steelers being lumped together like that, but I can also see why football evaluators would do that. The past 3 decades of both teams will show you a lot of similarities. In fact, there are a lot more similarities than there are differences between the Baltimore and Pittsburgh franchises. And what that executive meant, obviously, in that quote, is that the kid brings it. He's got that drive. He's got that passion. And when I watch him, which I did again last night, what jumps out at me the most is that he'll look like he's in a spot where he's out of a given play. He's either been blocked or the play just ran away from him. A lot of that happened to him in college. It always does with the good players. The next thing you'll see is that he'll still shed whatever block happens to be on him and continue to pursue wherever it is that he might think or sense that the football is. And he'll still make a play. And you know what I'm talking about when I describe this type of scene. Because you will see players, and this, I don't want to make it sound like they're quitting or they're whatever, because you see great players do this. They're just, the play is done for them. It's over. They're waiting to see how it turns out. He doesn't do that. Harmon just keeps going. The engine doesn't have an off. And I can't think of a trait that I would more want to witness, that I would more want to embrace in the player who's getting compared to Cam and is going to line up next to Cam. This young man was telling people And again, I'm hearkening back to before the draft, before there would have been any sort of, say the right thing sentiments, that the player he'd study the most often, especially as it applied to run defense, was Cam. He said, if I want to see run tape, I'm turning on 97. And I've got one other thing to confess to you on this count. And that's that I miss covering a team where the defensive line ate at you, where the defensive line was a force unto itself, with or without TJ wreaking havoc over on the left side. Respectful to TJ here, we have all of us, me, you, everybody, gone way too far in relying on TJ to do all of the disrupting. Because what ends up happening is if it doesn't occur, if TJ isn't that guy at the end of the game, instead of asking why it didn't happen with the D-line or why it didn't happen on the other side with Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig, why it didn't happen with the inside linebackers, we just look at TJ's stats and say, oh, where was TJ? Come on, we're all doing this. I do it too. I'm not accusing anybody of anything that I'm not guilty of myself. We all do this. So what I think about, and I'm just going to go right ahead and say this, is I think about Stephon Tuitt. I think about Cam and Steph. I think about what those two were able to do wholly independent of any TJ factor. Those two did so much damage on their own that TJ almost became a supporting cast type in that defense. I'm totally okay with this. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Rodney Hill, who says, hey, DK, let's just assume that Aaron Rodgers doesn't join the team for whatever reason. Now the Steelers have an extra $20 million to $30 million to spend in 2025. For fun, where would you like to see it spent? Well, you know what they say about wishing in one hand and something else in the other. I can wish for a versatile top-end tackle who can handle both sides and challenge and or support both Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. But that's not going to happen. That player is already taken many times over by many teams. We're probably going to see Spencer Anderson in that role or Calvin Anderson in that role. But the idea of going and getting one through, free agency or trade or anything, that's fantasy. So having the cap space doesn't always mean you can just snap your fingers and get what you want. So what I would do that I would hope is realistic, number one, I would go and get the WR2, and I would spare no literal expense to get this player. No, I don't believe it has to be some superstar. I don't believe it will be some superstar. Arthur Smith uses WR2 differently than most offensive coordinators. Get yourself someone who's durable, someone who's tough, someone who will block for you, but somebody who can make an impact the way you're supposed to make an impact at that position. Not going to be looking at Van Jefferson Part 2 here. And if there's any money left over, and you don't have to worry about how this affects TJ Watt's extension, since his extension actually and insanely will save the Steelers cap space in 2025, go and have a good, healthy meeting with Deshaun Elliott and ask what it's going to take to keep him around for 2 or 3 years. How's that sound? I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, we have a double shot coming your way at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll also have a new Ramon Foster show 2 hours before that. Both of those will be on our YouTube channel as well as on our own app and site, DK Pittsburgh Sports. This here thing will be back tomorrow.